Eden marries Cruz, Brick leaves Santa Barbara, and Cece marries Sophia. And Gina, all in the first episode of week 114 of Santa Barbara.
You may proceed, Reverend.
Welcome to week 114 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. Hey, Friday night, Dallas. We found out why Patrick Duffy was in Pam's shower. Bobby is alive, and the whole last season was a dream.
And he's just now nullified the entire plot line of Knots Landing for the foreseeable future.
I know, it's a lot. Knots Landing Flan. I was very... Flan? Did I say Flan? As a Knots Landing fan at the time, I was very upset that Dallas messed with the continuity of its spin-off sister series, Knots Landing.
And I think you were telling me that the producers of Knots Landing were not thrilled with this development either.
I believe I read that somewhere. I think they kind of decided, well, we're in our own universe now, so we're not going to even talk about you guys anymore.
No more crossovers.
I don't think we have any more crossovers coming because, we had Jock's death. There was nothing, similarly large to happen in the Dallas universe anyway that would make it, something that the fans would want. So we watched episode 552 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Monday, September 29th, 1986. Oh, we're fully into the first month of the new school year, both in reality and I guess in the Ted Capwell universe. We have no idea if he's doing well in his courses, or if he's still working at the radio station, or if that was just a summer job. He's more interested in the explosion that killed Amy, I guess. So maybe at some point when that settles down a bit, we'll find out what Ted's college situation is.
Yeah, we never hear him saying anything like, oh, I need to study for exams, so I can't come down for questioning at the police station.
Mm-hmm.
Being held for an indeterminate period in jail doesn't seem to be messing with his academic career at all. So.
Mm-hmm. Brick confronts Cece because he's just found out that Cece closed the casino and put it up for sale. This is literally right after Brick said, hey, whatever you do, don't close the casino because I don't want Lily to win. I feel like rich people do this all the time.
Yeah.
They'll have a conversation with someone who doesn't really have any power and just let them think that perhaps it went well and then just do what they want anyway.
Yeah. Actually, some customer service conversations kind of go like that, too.
Brick says to Cece, if you're not with me, I assume you're against me. Now, I thought, oh, maybe this is going to start some sort of, long-standing enmity between Cece and Brick. But in the next scene, Brick tells Sophia he's leaving Santa Barbara. And Sophia manages to talk him into staying until the wedding. So will this be the end of the final Perkins, Johnny? Mm-hmm. As Brick and Johnny leave town and the whole Channing-related Lionel-Sophia affair plotline that launched the whole show is coming to a final end? We'll see.
We're starting to put a lot of weight on this upcoming wedding. Now, of course, we still haven't had the reunion, which we were anticipating before. So we'll have to see what actually happens, assuming these two events do actually take place.
Kelly is not mentioned even in this episode, let alone seen. So she's, I guess, having fun in the boathouse while Pearl looks for her. Courtney's probably, I think, running interference to make sure that Pearl doesn't find Kelly. As you'll recall, Sophia... Oh, I reversed these scenes. Last time we saw Sophia, she was unconscious on Gina's floor. I guess it's a spoiler, she's not dead. Gina dumps a vase full of water on Sophia's head, and she regains consciousness. Sophia asks what kind of creature would be marrying Gina. Sophia tells Cece she's terrified that Gina will show up at the wedding. Cece breaks open Gina's door and uninvites her to the wedding.
Now, one somewhat worrying thing, we'll see if it actually is anything or not, is that Sophia does mention having headaches now after getting thumped on the head. So.
I think that's one of the reasons Cece was so angry that he burst into Gina's place and almost threatened to strike her, but at the last minute decided that might not go well for him.
Now, we remember that when Kelly was having headaches way back in the day, she ended up, communing with this creepy baby doll for quite some time, so...
That's true. Yeah, I can't remember any of the plot related to Sophia's head injury. I don't know if it's going to be it was just there to make Cece angry enough to go over there, or if this is going to be a long-running thing, and, there's always the threat of amnesia on a soap opera, so will Sophia be found wandering around town, dressed as that bag lady, and so Cece ends up having to call off the wedding? We will see. Sophia has a dream of marrying Cece. She comes down the stairs at the Capwell mansion in her dress. Cece and the judge are waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Cece and Sophia stand beside one another. But then, another figure comes down the stairs in a wedding dress. It's Gina. And Cece decides to marry them both. And that's when Sophia wakes up from her nightmare.
Now, maybe you can provide a little context for this, but I seem to remember a little while ago we were watching a video clip from one of the daytime Emmys back in the 80s. And the gimmick for that particular Emmys was that the presenters would come and present the awards in their character. And we actually saw a presentation with Cece coming in with Sophia and Gina on each arm. And I'm wondering, I don't remember the context. Would that Emmys broadcast have been around this time?
I think we watched them in... I don't know. Did we watch it as part of the Emmys that aired that day? Because if so, then it would have been around May, right? So it would have been reference to last year's events. So
it's just a very similar kind of image and vibe as we got in that.
Maybe the writers of Santa Barbara saw that and got the idea.
Maybe. I mean, I remember when you and I saw it, we weren't terribly impressed with it or thinking it had gone particularly well, at least, for an awards show. But, yeah, maybe that was their inspiration.
Later, the dressmaker shows up to work on repairing Sophia's dress a bit. Gina bursts into the Capwell mansion and tears Sophia's dress off her. Sorry, that's not right, is it? Because Sophia's dress wasn't damaged, right? So never mind.
No, it was Gina's dress.
Later, at the mansion, the dressmaker shows up to work on Sophia's dress in the atrium, and Gina bursts in and tears Sophia's dress off of her. And so the dressmaker pulls Gina off Sophia, and Cece shows up, and Gina says, "Now you've already seen the wedding gown. Or at least what's left of it. That'll bring you bad luck."
Now, as people who watch a lot of TV and a lot of vintage TV, we actually recognize the dressmaker.
Yes, and you said who it was, and I've forgotten already. Was it Rhoda?
It was one of Rhoda's girlfriends. So she has a girlfriend throughout, I think, most of the run of the series, who is perpetually pregnant. And it was played by the same actress.
That's right. Gina says, "That'll bring you bad luck." And Cece says, "I've already had years and years of it with you. You will not ruin this wedding." And Gina says, "I won't have to. You will." Bum, bum, bum. That was a bit of a Dark Shadows sting there. Eden surprises Cruz with a wedding. That's pretty much it. Eden stages a wedding at the church. Cruz makes his vows to God, while Eden makes her vows to Cruz. And they pretend they're married.
Yeah, don't get too excited. This is not a legally sanctioned wedding.
There was
marriage.
no documents were signed, of course, because
No blood tests.
he's still married to Santana in the eyes of the state of California. Keith is seen drinking a glass of milk for the third time, and I remember being so excited as a kid because I really love milk. It was my favorite drink, and you never see people drinking milk in fiction. And I was so surprised, so excited to see a character that was a fun character, enjoying a glass of milk, not apparently due to, being an alcoholic or anything, because I think we see him drinking too. And I just thought that was great. And so I'm going to keep account of how many glasses of milk Keith drinks. Mm-hmm. And I was also excited at the time that he seemed to just be enjoying milk, and they weren't going to throw in that old hackneyed trope of, I have an ulcer, I need to drink milk. So, that proves that I must have seen some of these episodes, because I remember the excitement. It'll excite you, drink some milk. Victoria is upset when she sees Katie's earring in Keith's hand. Keith offers her a ride home and says on the way he'll tell her the truth of how and why Katie died. I guess Victoria either really needed a ride or really wanted to see what Keith was cooking up, because she went with him and they end up in Keith's apartment. Not sure if that was part of the deal, but we see her looking at a photo of Katie while Keith makes some phone calls and drinks a glass of ginger ale. Victoria flashes back, and I think this is our final flashback, to Katie after Katie encounters her and Cruz on the beach, and Katie accuses Victoria of setting the whole thing up. So that is exactly what Cruz accused her of last episode in the present. Interesting that Katie cottoned on to that. And that's when Katie decides to go swimming without changing out of her clothes. Cruz returns from, I forgot what he was doing, and says, we should go after her. Now, remember that Cruz has this broken arm. I think that's probably an important plot point, so that Cruz is not blameless for not swimming in after her, because there's no way he could have rescued her in any way with that broken arm. Victoria says, just leave her alone. She's just getting out her frustrations. So she kind of, puts off the idea that someone needs to go rescue Katie, which, as we saw from a future part of the flashback, eventually Cruz goes to get the beach patrol when she has swum out far enough. But perhaps Victoria is telling him not to worry about it, delayed that by enough time that may be what caused Katie to not be rescuable. Keith tells Victoria he found that earring right where Katie's body was found. I think this is, really why Victoria needs to stick close to Keith, just to see how close he's getting to the truth, I guess. Keith says, when Cruz and I were still friendly, he mentioned you more than once. He wants you, and Eden knows it. So this is, I think, just an attempt to stick something into Cruz, mess up his relationship with Eden, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny, they keep showing all of these images of Cruz and Tori making out on the beach, and it actually, I don't know, I guess having spent some time on beaches lately, it's not actually that sexy, thinking of lying there in the sand and getting covered in sand, and they're just kissing. It's not really that hot, I think. Mm-hmm. Plus, I kept thinking there's this whole, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the original Queer as Folk, which is the British one from the 80s, but there is a whole storyline on that show about people making out and ending up with sandflies, which I kept thinking about too.
I think maybe that the injured arm plays into this a little bit, because it explains, why aren't they swimming, or why aren't they just walking on the beach? Cruz is, it makes more sense that Cruz would just be hanging out on the blanket. So
yeah,
I think that helps add to it. But then you think about pull back out of the show into the real world, and the actors probably spent a day on the beach having to redo that scene multiple times while A. Martinez was wearing a sling that probably got more and more uncomfortable as they started sweating and the day got hot.
Yeah, and the sand just gets everywhere.
Yeah. So, location shoots, which soaps can't really afford to do anymore. So Victoria slips a note under the beach house door, not really realizing Cruz and Eden have gone off to get married. And when Cruz and Eden return, Cruz carries Eden over the threshold, which causes him to step over the note and not see it. And then later, Eden spots the note, reads it, and the note asks Cruz to meet Victoria at the airport. Well, not unexpectedly, when Cruz has to run off to work or something. Eden meets Victoria at the airport instead. And Eden accuses her of stealing the note, and she says, "I found this note in my house, addressed to my husband."
Yeah, Eden's got a good case there.
So, I think that was the whole point of the marriage, was to be able to just make sure Victoria knows that they are married, because really, without the paperwork, you pretty much just have to tell people you're married, and Eden wasted no time in doing that. So, presumably that will fluster Victoria a little bit. And maybe Eden has staved off any attempts by Keith to drive a wedge between her and Cruz. They talk about having babies too, which I think they've done before. So, Santana asks Keith why he's not in jail yet. Keith accuses her of setting him up for her hubby. Santana says that Angel swore to her that Keith is the one who gave her the pills. And at this point, Keith, I guess, has some more information that he didn't know, not knowing that Santana was involved in this whole thing. Keith says, "Gina's good, buddy." And I think he immediately realizes what's happened as he storms off. And Santana, I think, based on his reaction, realizes that he thinks that maybe Gina somehow put Angel up to it. So she goes to Cruz. I think that's the reason he left the beach house, and tells him the whole thing. And Cruz is trying to put things together and says, well, maybe it was Gina's idea. Still not, I guess, realizing that the whole thing was a setup against Keith. Cruz says, the time is probably ripe to let them hang each other. Santana says, let me help, I was their victim. Cruz says, they did go out of their way to break us up. I guess it would be poetic justice. I feel like, other than some possibly judicial things that shouldn't have been allowed, Keith really hasn't done anything that probably he could, go to jail for with respect to the drugs.
No. I think he could definitely go to jail for the El Blanco stuff that we saw ages ago.
Mm-hmm. But what Cruz has, which is basically just Angel's testimony, the worst case scenario for, the truth coming out, and an even worse case scenario for Cruz then, is that Angel will say, yeah, Keith had nothing to do with it. Yeah. And then now Cruz has been going after his boss for several weeks now, and it all turned out to be due to a lie.
Yeah.
That Santana was involved in, and therefore, Keith could use that against Cruz, maybe even officially saying, well, his wife got this guy to lie for him, right? So this actually could go very poorly for Cruz.
Well, that plus, remember, Keith has the wiretaps that show that Cruz and Eden knew that Kelly was off in Europe.
Even if they can't use them in court, he could probably use that as justification for firing Cruz. The dressmaker tells Gina that her dress is unsalvageable. Keith bursts in to accuse Gina of using Angel to set him up. And Gina asks him if he'd rather face a hit-and-run charge when she tells Cruz that he was in the car when Santana hit Eden. So, basically, Gina's kind of confessing to the fact that she did set him up. Mm-hmm. But, if he doesn't go along with it, she'll have him sent away for the other thing. So, I think Keith now has to choose for the lesser of two evils. So.
Well, a little bit of backstabbing has never really come between Keith and Gina.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be in bed again.
This is a really great pairing, you
Yeah.
know, and it just kind of, the writers really, I don't know if the writers knew they were going to go this way when they introduced Keith, because he was more of a, foil for Cruz right from the beginning, or at least interested in Santana, let's say, is one of the first things we cottoned on to, that he knew these people in the past. But yeah, this is a great pairing. It's probably a lot of soap opera polls would have these as one of the all-time best soap opera couples. That is it for the Monday episode. So we'll be back after we watch the Tuesday episode, number 553 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Now you've already seen the wedding gown, or at least what's left of it. That'll bring you years and years of bad luck.
I already had my share with you. I'll buy her another dress. I'll buy her 50 dresses, but you will not ruin the wedding.
I won't have to, Cece. You'll do it for me.
Probably find him eccentric and charming, don't you?
I'm just a little curious.
Probably tunneling his way to your bedroom.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 553 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, September 30th, 1986. The artist unveils the finished portrait of Cece and Gina on their wedding day. And Gina says, "Now I know how the Mona Lisa felt when Rembrandt unveiled his masterpiece." Cece and Sophia visit Ted in jail. We haven't seen the Santa Barbara jails for a while. It looks like they've been redone. They've been repainted green, it looks like. Cece says he's both proud of Ted and angry with him for throwing away his future. Gina talks Haley out of turning herself in to save Ted. That's not going to be our only view of the Santa Barbara jail cells this episode. Mm-hmm. Cruz gets Santana to help him trap Keith and Gina. Santana lets each of them know that the other is talking to Cruz, and each thinks the other is going to betray them. Seeing Gina with Cruz and the stenographer, Keith agrees to confess to being in the car with Santana in exchange for Cruz to stop framing him. Keith signs a confession. Cruz hands him another sheet to sign, a resignation, in exchange for his confession. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure. If he returns the confession in exchange for the resignation, then that doesn't get Santana off the hook, does it?
I don't think so. But,
Yeah.
I mean, Keith was obviously feeling quite perturbed by the situation he's found himself in.
Cruz tries the same thing with Gina, but she just laughs at him. Gina says, "Soon no one in this town will dare to question me, including two common pests like you." Then Gina finds Keith taking down his diploma and cleaning out his office, and she laughs at him when she finds out that Keith fell for Cruz's trick, and she did not. He smashes the glass on his framed diploma.
You have to hand it to Gina. She has a certain degree of street smarts. She may not know who Leonardo da Vinci is, but she does know how to avoid the fate that Keith Simmons is currently facing.
Yeah, that's actually quite a surprise. As I said, I couldn't remember how all this plays out, but yeah, that's an interesting twist. So let's see. Who's still on the hook for what? I mean, now they know that Keith was in the car, and therefore Santana is not responsible for writing down Eden, but they can't use the confession in court, so I'm not sure what that's about. And then the pills thing is still unresolved, so that's still outstanding. So before his resignation, Keith takes Courtney into custody for refusing to turn to tell him where Kelly is. And then sends Officer Rizzo in to scare Courtney. Well, Officer Rizzo takes his job a little too seriously. He attacks her in the shower to try to get her to reveal where Kelly is. Ted is just being escorted down that hallway as they hear Courtney scream, and Ted and the officer burst in, and Cruz comes in shortly afterwards. and arrests Rizzo and tells Keith that his man almost raped Courtney. And Keith says, tell it to the next DA.
And would this maybe be Mason who will be the next DA?
I think he's going to lobby for it. Mm-hmm. And Keith cuts his hand on the glass from his diploma. He's so angry. So I don't know if they can appoint a temporary DA, but if there still needs to be an election at some point. So maybe Mason will get himself temporarily appointed, but then find himself running against someone else.
Like maybe even Gina. Or not Gina.
Julia.
I guess it could be Gina. I was trying to say Julia.
It's our only other lawyer right now. So.
Yeah, we had so many at one point.
Well, we had a lot of murders in that first season, too. And a lot of rapes. And we're down to, I think, one murder this year. And one attempted rape. So, obviously, there's been a shift in season 2. Pearl visits Courtney in jail. Oh, that's nice. He asks her if she knows where Kelly is. Courtney, understandably, is livid to discover that's why Pearl visited her. I used to think you were a very special person, but this is one of the cruelest things anyone has ever done to me. I hope you never get to see Kelly. I hate you. Pearl then goes to Sophia and Cece and tells them that he loves Kelly and wants to see her. Cece agrees, eventually, with Sophia's prodding to let Pearl see Kelly, until he discovers that Pearl sold the house back to Lionel. And in a quite hilarious scene when Cece comes over to talk to Pearl and discovers Lionel there, and Lionel just says, "Ha ha, I have the house back," just as Pearl's trying to negotiate the trip to see Kelly. We do not see Kelly in this episode, so it's another day has gone by.
They're kind of teasing it out.
Jane talks to Lionel about her mother moving from town to town, and she wishes they had settled in Santa Barbara. Is that the first time we found out that they actually did live in Santa Barbara for a portion of time?
It's the first I heard of it.
Lionel says that she can move into the spare room. What's another surrogate daughter? This causes Jane to frown, because I think she's hoping that maybe Lionel might consider her as a potential love interest rather than a surrogate daughter.
The Lockridge house is turning into a hostel.
Later, Cece's security guard brings Lionel into the mansion, holding a shovel, and Lionel says he's been excavating a dinosaur on Cece's property. After he's taken away, Cece says to Sophia, "You probably find him eccentric and charming. He's probably tunneling his way into your bedroom." And we find out in that scene that the wedding is in 2 days.
Wow.
So that would, if it's 2 real days, that means we'd see it on Thursday.
So it'll happen before the reunion.
I guess so. And yeah, if Gina's going to be there, she's currently got a reprieve from her potential legal troubles. Maybe we'll see what shenanigans she can manage to pull at the wedding before Cruz comes after her again. And that is it for the Tuesday episode and the last day of September 1986. Oh, we did find one thing around from Expo 86. We still haven't shown you all our various souvenirs from that year. But this was discovered in a drawer just the other day, and I think it was your mom's. Mm-hmm. Expo 86 official medallion. The lighting's kind of weird with that lid in the way. So yeah, it's a silver Expo medallion. Presumably the silver is worth something. I don't know if the Expo value of it makes it worth more, but we've got the original case too. So we'll pick up a few more Expo 86 artifacts before the year is over.
I think that's probably the only one from my side of the equation, but you may still have a few little things hidden away.
I did, yeah. I saw a passbook in one of the things I brought from my parents' house. So I did. I don't know if I told this at the start of the season, but my friend, my roommate, he worked at Expo over the summer, and he worked in the nacho cheese hut, I guess. So you could go there and get nachos with cheese. And he would tell me that They had this big bubbling vat of orange cheese that they would put on the tortilla chips all day. And then at night, they would turn it off. And then in the morning, they would show up, and there would be this hardened mass of cold cheese sauce in the warmer. Then they would crank it up, and eventually it was soft again, and they'd keep ladling it out onto more tortilla chips. So if anyone got sick from nacho cheese at Expo, that might be the reason.
That doesn't sound like an authentic Mexican meal to me.
I feel like if it was real cheese, you probably shouldn't just leave it sitting out overnight. So it may have been some sort of plastic made to look and taste like cheese.
American cheese melted.
Could be. All right, we'll be back after we watched episode 554 of Santa Barbara. See you then.
Bye-bye.
You know something, Santana? I think I liked you better on drugs.
What's this?
It's apple juice. It's a bit early for anything else. What did you think it was?
Well, we have established that you're moderately human, Lily.
Well, that's true, but my vices wake up a little later than my virtues.
Darling, that's wonderful. It sounds beautiful.
It was.
And if you're not here for the wedding rehearsal tomorrow, I'll kill you.
I'll be here.
Gina, if you were the last woman on earth, if you possessed the secrets of eternal youth and everlasting life, if you made the best uncontaminated chocolate chip cookies in the world, my father still would never marry you again.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 554 of Santa Barbara. Originally aired Wednesday, October 1st, 1986. And in the last few days, during our evening watching of old shows, we encountered Ben Piazza several times. He, of course, played Dr. Rawlings on Santa Barbara. He showed up as Dr. Josiah Bartlett on St. Elsewhere. And we also saw him in episode 17 of Switch, Come Die With Me, which starred Gretchen Corbett from the Rockford Files as a stewardess. And I've just been watching Benson, and he's shown up as a photographer in a two-part whodunit. And a couple of episodes earlier in my little Benson-a-thon I had yesterday, Mary Alice Kasner showed up as in a somewhat small role. So that, of course, is Alice Jackson on Santa Barbara.
Misha is a connoisseur of many soap operas, and his absolute favorite next to Santa Barbara is Another World, and we will be going to New York to Another World convention.
And I found out that the Another World convention has, I think they said, over 20 actors and writers and camera people have said they're willing to come, obviously, if they can. And one of the people who was on Another World in the late 60s, early 70s was Jordan Charney, who we know as Dr. Renfro from Santa Barbara. And he is currently on the list of people attending, so I'm hoping something doesn't come up for him before then, and that we'll get a chance to meet Dr. Renfro. And hopefully he won't wipe our minds with his autonomic limbic retrograder.
Maybe we'll find out what actually happened to him, because the last time we saw him, he was sprawled across the Perkins living room.
Back in Santa Barbara, it's the first day of October for us. And of course, we remember the weddings in 2 days, the wedding of Sophia and Cece. And Sophia worries about what Gina may be up to. And Cece says he's hired extra guards. And they've all been issued photos of Gina. And then Sophia says, what if she shows up in disguise? So that got me thinking of some fun ways Gina could sneak into the wedding.
I'm actually not sure she needs to, if she manages to get a hold of CC before the wedding and wave the video around in his face.
I mean, I feel like it'll be one of these things where she sneaks in, sets up the video for CC in one of the upstairs bedrooms, and then calls him up there somehow, and so she can show him. But presumably, if she brought a copy of the tape, Cece could just take it from her. So maybe she'll just have the odd still a photo from a Polaroid, maybe one of the gun and one of a good frame from the film, because otherwise, Cece could just overpower her and take the tape.
Now, of course, in true soap opera fashion, the most dramatic approach would be for her to sneak in, and then, of course, when they inevitably ask if anyone objects to this union, she could stand up and show the video or something.
She could show a piece of the video, piece where you can't see the gun in Dylan's hand, but where it's clear that, it's from that day. Eden and Cruz, of course, got married the other day and now need to go on a honeymoon. I think Cruz talked about going to Tahiti, and Eden says, we only have a day and a half before my parents' wedding. And Sophia threatens Eden if she doesn't get back in time for the wedding. So they end up going somewhere called Anacapa Island, which I have never heard of, between the two times I've seen this episode. So we'll look that up and see if that's a real place. I don't see why it wouldn't be. But thanks to Pearl, Tori finds out where they are, and she tracks them down because to her it is extremely urgent news that Keith has the other earring, which she saw him with at the Orient Express in the last episode. Eden, of course, is not too happy that Victoria has showed up on their honeymoon.
Yeah, and I have to admit, as you know, the whole earring storyline has kind of evaded me, its importance. So I'm not quite sure why this matters either. And I'm certainly understand Eden's irritation with this. And unless it is a very significant thing, and maybe it is, because Cruz does bolt out the door when he hears about it, it does just seem very kind of intrusive and desperate on Tori's part. Because,
Keith's had that earring for 35 years. There's nothing they can do in the next 3 hours that's going to change that. He's still going to have it in his possession. The best thing they can do is make sure that other set that Eden has is not publicly displayed again.
I still don't understand why any of it matters, though.
Yeah. Does Keith not know that Cruz and or Victoria were on the beach that day? Is that going to make a huge difference, I guess? Mason tells Lily that Keith dropped all the charges against Santana and then resigned. So I guess that's a bit that we didn't think about last time when he was signing a confession about being in the car, but I guess he also dropped the charges. That was the important thing. And Mason talks about his plans that go above and beyond becoming the DA. So I think he might run for mayor or governor or what else is there, senator. So we'll see. But it seems like he wants Lily Light at his side with all this. So he goes to visit Keith and enters the room with, out with the old, in with the new. So he seems pretty certain he's going to get this job. Lily does talk about the electorate. So I'm thinking there will be an election in the near future. Courtney visits Keith. She, of course, is still in jail at the start of this episode, but she's allowed to walk into his office and says, I do have photos that show that you are having an affair with my sister Madeline. So this came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he was on the show back when Madeline was murdered.
I feel like he was, yeah.
I think we'll research that.
I think there's a little bit of retconning going on here.
But we saw 2 flashbacks in this episode, not including Keith, just Courtney and Madeline. And I thought, did we see this or is this new? So I checked, and Madeline is credited as being in this episode. So I feel that was at least one of those 2 flashbacks may have been a newly shot scene to start to tie in Keith Timmons to the murder. And now that Keith is no longer the DA and other than his revenge against Cruz, maybe he's on the outs as a character, and they've decided, let's make him the murderer. I don't know.
Well, he's such a delicious character, and they kind of need a villain, beyond Gina. So it fits really pretty well.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I mean, other than Courtney and Keith talking about it, or Keith having flashbacks, it's going to be very hard to see what was going on for us, the viewer, because Madeline's not there to tell the tale. So anyway, she is trying to blackmail him to let her out of prison, or stop questioning her, or whatever is going on. And he says, hey, today's my last day, and I hate to waste all this great blackmail. So the next thing we see, Courtney goes home, and Sophia is very happy that she's out. And Sophia has to go for something wedding related, so she says, oh, Kelly left this note for Pearl. Can you be sure to give it to him? She immediately tears open the letter when Sophia leaves, scans it, and tears it up. When Pearl arrives, he notes all the bruising on her arms from her rough interrogation at the Santa Barbara police station, and says, did Kelly talk about me or leave a note or anything? And Courtney says, nope, she just been asking about Nick. And then Pearl, then they go into talking about their relationship. She complains about how he checked himself into that mental hospital just to see Kelly. And he's like, I didn't even know more than her name at that point. I was in there looking for my brother. So, yeah, she says, you checked yourself into the hospital to see Kelly while we were still dating. I wonder if you'll get tired with her, too, when you sleep with her. So, yeah, Courtney's not going to let up on this Kelly fixation. I feel like even if Kelly's not interested at this point, the Pearl-Courtney ship has sailed. So maybe she should just let it go.
And, unless she is the murderer of Madeline, she could do a lot better than Pearl, I feel. So
She could wait around.
I don't know why she's hanging on to him.
Wait around for Brick a little bit, or there's Lionel, there's also single Nick.
Well, there's a whole city of people in Boston or anywhere else in the world.
Angel might be free.
Yeah, she needs a drug dealer, I guess. Pearl was what, a busboy and a valet, so I guess if that's her type. Maybe.
Danny Andrade, single. Haven't seen him for a while. Gina complains that Keith wrecked her plans for Santana by letting her go on those charges. And she tells him she plans to trade Kelly's tape to CC for some wedding vows. I think we all knew that, right? There was no new information there. And she's going to sue Santana for shooting her. Keith notes in this episode a couple of points that she manages to walk and or run quite easily without her cane. Yes. And that's what leads to the discussion about the fact that she's still trying to make it look like she's still badly injured because of her upcoming lawsuit. So we'll see if that goes very far. The wedding thing is going to happen sooner than later, so we'll see how that goes. Gina tells Mason that he'll make a wonderful DA and can fix all her parking tickets. There is an incident at the Orient Express where Lily and Gina both have the same shopping bags, and Lily grabs the wrong one at one point, and when Gina grabs it from her, it spills open, and all of the invitations to the wedding of Cece and Gina pop out, and Lily reads one. Lily tells Mason about those invitations, and he says, I'm going to make it my purpose to find out what exactly she's up to. Earlier, he had said to Gina, if you made the best uncontaminated chocolate chip cookies in the world, my father would never marry you again. There were actually several chocolate chip cookie related jokes in this episode from different characters. And actually there were a ton of hilarious lines that I'm going to try to drop in as clips to this episode. So many great puns and things. More than I can quote here. Gina tries to seduce Mason, and he tells her that what he wants from her is to swear a life of chastity if he wants to remain his friend. This is, of course, I think, hilarious on Mason's part to toy with Gina.
But it is interesting that Gina, very admittedly, is still carrying a torch for Mason. So that could really lead to a whole other layer of conflict between her and Lily Light.
And it's interesting, she's actively planning to marry Cece in 2 days, but still wants something with Mason, and is like, just like Lily, kind of backing him up as the DA, like she's going to be somehow the first lady of the DA, as well as being married to his father. So I don't know, either she's just juggling a lot of things, hoping that something will stick. I think that's a mixed metaphor, or she's just going to want both.
Well, though, is that really so different than the situation she was in before, where she was married with to Cece and banging Mason? And I don't remember if he was still assistant DA at that time or not, but really she's kind of looking for a bit of a return of status quo.
Yeah. And really with Cece, at this point, all she wants from him is Brandon and his money. So Brandon continues to be an important MacGuffin in the Santa Barbara saga. Gina visits Keith, and after some brief arguing, they end up in bed. And the last thing we hear Gina say is, "Sorry, Mason." I think Keith may be a bit confused by that. In fact, for a second, I wasn't sure what she was talking about. Then I realized her vow of chastity had gone out the window very quickly. And that is it for this Wednesday episode.
We actually did learn one other kind of interesting piece of information. When Gina and Keith are talking, and she kind of says, "What are you going to do now?" He says, "Oh, I think I want to work for the Capwells."
That's right. I forgot about that. He's going to propose to, he's hoping Gina will help him when she's installed as Mrs. Capwell to become the chief counsel for Capwell Enterprises worldwide, he says. He's casting his net very far, and I don't know if Mason is currently in that role, or he was at one point. So, yeah.
That would make for kind of an interesting situation, one which we haven't seen since the old Kurt Cranston days, where you have a very dark character actually working within the Capwell company.
He would have a lot of reason to lurk around the Capwell mansion. So that's always good from a set point of view on a soap opera, if everyone comes to a central meeting place. The Capwell Atrium being one of those, and the Orient Express being another major meeting point for people. All right, we will see what happens on the Thursday episode as we watch episode 555 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you after that. Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is my last day as district attorney. I've tendered my resignation.
What?
Yes, yeah. I hate to see you waste all that great blackmail. You could use it on Castillo. He'll be dealing with you now. If you've come to circle the body, I should warn you, it's not dead yet.
Oh. And I came to pick out the eyes.
You planning on suing Santana for damages?
She caused me great emotional and physical trauma. She interfered with my ability to pursue my livelihood.
What livelihood? Making poison cookies?
You know, I was thinking of considering you to represent me in my case. With that lousy attitude of yours.
I appreciate your offer, but I have had a better one as bellboy for the Capwell Hotel.
Well, have you officially vacated your office yet?
No, I'm keeping it as a weekend hideaway. I'll have a double scotch on the rocks. Put it on her tab. Yes, sir.
If I wanted to keep somebody, I'd like him to at least be clean-shaven. Well, I think I'll go over and pay Miss Light a visit.
Don't forget your limp, and watch out for her. She may heal you.
Why should I do you a favor after the way you've been treating me?
You can't think of any reasons?
Not any big ones.
You could end up in high places.
Where? Near the edge of a cliff, ready to jump?
That we're going to piece together enough bones to put together an entire animal. And you realize what that means?
It could mean that you would be digging up bones under Capwell's petunias.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 555 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Thursday, October 2nd, 1986. Mason has shaved his beard, except for the mustache. And several characters comment upon it during this episode. Julia, Keith, Gina. Mason asks Julia to work for him when he gets the district attorney job. This is really an exciting turn of events. I always like the Mason and Julia scenes. And Julia says, "You and I have never agreed on any issue." And Mason says, "You could end up in high places." And she replies, "Near the edge of a cliff, ready to jump."
It's a reminder that we're back to form with Santa Barbara. We now have 3 freelance lawyers at play.
Keith sees the mustache and says, "A new image. Has anyone appointed you acting DA yet? That way you'll be the only name anyone knows on the ballot." So as we were theorizing, he would be acting DA until the election. Keith asks Julia to start a law firm with him, 50-50. She's got offers coming from both directions. And of course, in the back of her head, she's probably looking for potential fathers for her baby. So I'm watching all of these scenes with that subtext of her evaluating Mason and Keith as potential donors for her secondary project.
An alcoholic and a sociopath. Those are the only choices in Santa Barbara.
Lionel might be an option for her. Don't know if Augusta would be too happy about that. Lionel tells Jane that she reminds him a little bit of his daughter, Lincoln, and that helps because he doesn't miss her as much. And Lincoln has another, Jane has another one of those semi-annoyed looks on her face when she realizes she's being put in the daughter zone.
Yeah, I don't think that's what she was going for.
Lionel and Jane try to get CC to allow them to excavate what they are now calling a seismosaurus. Long story short, CC kicks them out.
Don't think that is a scientifically proven dinosaur species.
I think in the 21st century, they have reclassified it as a subset of an existing dinosaur.
Oh.
But in the 80s, they thought that was a real dinosaur. And it is a real dinosaur, just not separate from another one that they end up merging it with. Yes, a bit of a hilarious scene in the Capwell atrium that I've just glossed over. But,
and we saw minks.
Lionel gets Julia to look through the original purchase agreement for the Lockridge land. And some of it is in Spanish, which Lionel reads. And it basically mentions a clause allowing for historical artifacts. So Lionel is certain that Nathaniel Capwell must have signed a similar agreement when he purchased the land that the Capwell house is on. And Minx is sitting on the couch quietly this entire time. And when she chimes in, she says that Lionel better not be digging up her petunias. And then when she finds out that part of the seismosaur might be under the Capwell property, she postulates, "You could be digging up bones under Capwell's petunias." And then at the end, after Lionel has, found the clause in the agreement and plans to go further to find the original Capwell agreement, Minx says, "Don't do it, Lionel." And Lionel says, "I'm not afraid of CC." And Minx says, "Just do as I say. Don't pursue it, and don't ask any questions. Turn your back on it. If you don't, you might regret it all your life."
Wow, that's intriguing.
I know. This, what I thought was an amusing little thing, suddenly has taken on some dark undertones. Are we to find that T. McDonald Lockridge murdered someone and buried him under the petunias one day? Is that the dark thing that Minx is worried about? Or, like, what else could it be?
Well, though, remember when the whole treasure of the Amanda Lockridge was an intriguing thing and that kind of puttered out, and we still haven't gotten our reunion, so, you know, sometimes things that seem to have promise and seem very exciting don't really go really anywhere.
Well, I don't really remember this, so maybe you're right, or maybe it's one of those over so quickly you forget that it ever was things. I don't know if this was true, but I felt like Dame Judith Anderson had some trouble with her lines this time around. It's kind of reminding me of Doug on Days of Our Lives as he got older. Minx only had, I think, 2 scenes sitting from the couch, but both times, you know, I feel she was stumbling over her lines. Maybe it's because she's on set so rarely she didn't get into the swing of things, or I'm wondering if she's actually having problems suddenly at this point in her life.
Well, she was quite elderly, I think, when she started the show a couple of years ago. So, yeah, she's probably, you know, if not memory issues, stamina issues might be starting to come into play.
She definitely was sitting the entire, I believe, 2 scenes that she was in. So we'll see next time she's there if this was just a glitch or if there's a cause for worry. Victoria tells Cruz that Keith has the other earring and begs him to throw Eden's earrings into the sea. Eden, so annoyed that Victoria has found them, calls off the honeymoon, makes them return home, and says she's spending the night at the Capwell Hotel. But as Cruz is about to take her earrings, she shows up at home and then is really annoyed that he's listening to what Victoria has to say. And she says, I'm going to wear these at the wedding tomorrow.
Now, I have to say, having shopped for earrings for many years, a very enjoyable experience, I can't see these as being really very distinctive earrings, either the revised version that Eden's created or the originals. So, and I still don't really understand their significance in the story.
Well, Tori and Cruz are really worried that Keith will see them, and I think this next thing might sort of answer it a little bit.
I'm hoping for a big blow up at the wedding over these earrings that'll explain everything.
Yeah, well, Keith will have to be invited to the wedding somehow, so that's interesting. Keith takes Victoria to South Beach after some cajoling, and she ends up actually doing it almost to spite Eden when Eden and Cruz walk in, so that Cruz can see her leaving with Keith. And the whole trip down there, he's telling her the story of Katie's drowning, which I'm sure Victoria has already heard multiple times from Keith alone, let alone in her own head. And then we learn something new to the story, which maybe it was easy to miss, but he says that apparently someone saw Katie out swimming way too far, but that a different person said to that first person, oh, don't worry, she's fine, and not to bother. And now Keith, suddenly, first time mentioning it, is on the lookout for this mystery third person or second person who said Katie's fine. I don't see how he could tie that to the earring, because it's a big beach. A lot of people hang out on the beach, so not sure, unless Victoria says, it was me, or he goes to interview that other person who said, oh yes, there was a lady. Wasn't it famous actress Victoria Lane who told me Katie was fine?
Didn't we see a scene with Victoria saying that to Cruz at one point?
To Cruz, yeah, but how would Keith know that conversation? That it almost makes me think, someone else showed up after that scene, and Victoria told them as well, oh, don't bother. And we did see the flashback to the scene where Keith finds Katie's body, which is interesting because I had pictured it on that beach where we had the location shots, but they actually showed an in-studio segment just in front of the beach bar, almost, it seemed, with a crowd gathered around Katie, and then Keith coming from the snack bar area and parting the crowd and cradling Katie's hand. So I think this may be Katie's last appearance. I think she's only in 4 episodes, and we've already seen 5 now. So I think we have a bunch of little pieces of a puzzle that don't really fit together. Unless Victoria confesses, I can't really see Keith really finding any evidence 5 years later that's going to be helpful. But maybe the guy who runs the beach bar will be... Oh, yes, there's Victoria. That's the one who told me not to go after Katie. Mason catches Gina sneaking into the mansion with a suitcase full of equipment. This reminds me of the previous caper type things. It, of course, has a VCR and a tape in it that she sets up in Cece's bedroom because she knows he likes to watch TV before bed. Mason wants to know what it is, and she says, "Oh, it's a funny movie." He doesn't seem to push on that. You would think, considering the last time a tape was played for Cece by Mason, how shocking that would have been. If I were Mason, I'd really want to see what was on this tape. Gina convinces Mason to sign the card so that Cece won't realize that the tape is from her. He does agree to do it, so he might be in Cece's bad books for aiding Gina with this. She kisses him, and he tries to rebuke her advances by saying, "I don't feel like being murdered in my father's bedroom." But they're in that room for quite some time, and eventually she manages to get Mason on the bed for a few minutes. But then he changes his mind and says he doesn't want to reenact one of the blacker moments of Capwell history, which would be that time that Cece found Mason and Gina, played by Linda Gibney, on that same bed. Mm-hmm. He leaves, and Gina hears Sophia and Cece's voices in the hallway. And Cece's like, "Oh, no, I'm sure I heard voices up here." And Gina climbs out the window and hides on the ledge as Cece and Sophia come in. And Sophia thinks it was just a ploy by Cece to get her into the bedroom. And they end up making out on the bed a little bit as Cece tries to overcome her, pre-wedding abstinence rule. But then Sophia spots the VCR blinking. And they go over and press play, and we see a Tarzan movie on the screen. And on the ledge, Gina says, "Today, Ungawa, tomorrow, I do."
So we get a little snippet of that classic Johnny Weissmuller signature line from the Tarzan movies.
Now, does that mean that she spliced something into later in the movie, or that she's going to switch the tapes, now that everyone's had their... I mean, really, she should wait for Mason to check it out, too, so that he thinks, okay, it's just a Tarzan movie, and then switch it out. But we'll see. I feel like, is the wedding tomorrow?
Well, I think you looked at the actual schedule.
Well, we have the files that we're watching are actually, some of them have, key moments in the file name, and we see Cece and Sophia's wedding, and it's in about 5 or 6 episodes. So this is going to go Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to have a whole week of the day before and the day of the wedding, I guess. So, I mean, I guess the morning of the wedding could be several episodes as Gina does shenanigans and Mason does shenanigans.
Well, we've got a whole bunch of stuff probably with Cruz and Eden thrown in there. We might even see Kelly, maybe?
We are also getting a new character next week. And we will see... remember I said we were going to see 2 characters we hadn't seen in a while? One of them was Madeline that we saw this week, and I believe it's next week we'll see another character that's been just wandering around Santa Barbara for months and months without any lines.
Is it the lady who was left in Warren's barn?
No. All right, Friday, October 3rd. We'll be watching episode 556. And then Friday night, we got a Falcon Crest season premiere. So it'll excite you. Fridays are exciting. We'll be back after we watch episode 556 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Maybe I'm just not too keen on being discovered and murdered in my father's bedroom. And I don't think you want to know about Lily. I don't think you'd like the motive behind her interest in you.
Nothing would surprise me. Besides, I'm beginning to find out that she and I are similar types. You notice?
I remember when you had matching black eyes.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We've finished episode 556 of Santa Barbara. Originally aired October 3rd, 1986. Cece is reading the paper, and it says, more earthquake activity predicted. Wow. This is an unexpected turn of events, and I don't remember it at all from the first time I watched it, even though I'm having flashes of memory from this whole season. I must have not learned anything last semester with my low grades about not staying home to watch Santa Barbara instead of going to class.
Well, just judging by this episode, so far at least, the earthquakes are not as dramatic as some that we've seen in the past on this show. We just get a few little tremors, really.
I don't know if that's, a precursor to something big, perhaps at the wedding, or if that was just a little tease. Mason surprises Ted by telling him he's the DA now, and he's getting him a 2-day furlough so he can attend his parents' wedding. Ted invites Haley to the wedding. Earthquake! Sophia injures her ankle in the earthquake because she is having a maid once again put pins in her dress. I don't know much about dressmaking, but there should come a time when you stop putting pins in it, I would think.
And start actually making alterations. Yeah.
Well, that was the maid, though, not the dressmaker. So the dress has been delivered to her, and it's all
pinned,
ready to go, and the maid is still putting pins in it.
Doesn't sound like much of a dressmaker, actually. You still need to have your dress pinned up.
Sophia says to Cece, do you think Gina ordered up that earthquake? Lily experiences her first earthquake. Mason tells her he's been appointed district attorney pro tem. And Mason tells her that he realizes she might not be that good for his image. She says, all my followers will be behind you. And he goes, you don't have that many left. And the kind that are, I don't think I want to be seen having as my supporters. And so she wonders out loud if he's thinking of Gina as a better replacement. And Mason says his only interest in Gina is to try to figure out how she's going to sabotage the wedding. I feel like Mason's, snooping may not discover the truth.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, in some ways, how much he really wants to know, how much she will disrupt the wedding, because what does it really matter to him?
Maybe he just wants a good show. Gina sees the wedding announcement in the paper and says, right headline, wrong bride. Then the earthquake causes her to bonk her head. Haley visits, just as Gina is icing her head, and finds the portrait of Gina and Cece. And Gina sort of pushes it off as being from her previous wedding to Cece. And she said, I just found it in the closet. Now, remember, she was living in a motel for a while, so I don't know how much stuff she would have been lugging around town.
And do we know where Gina gets her money now that she's not in the hotel anymore?
Because she was poor.
Yeah, she had nothing. And, she doesn't...
She must have kept some of the cookie money even after the payouts.
Maybe.
So the company went bankrupt probably from the lawsuits, but she managed to have a big corporate golden parachute. Let's assume she's living on cookie money. She gives Haley a bridesmaid's dress, but says the groom's a secret, don't tell anyone, and call in sick tomorrow. Gina returns home later to find a red X painted over the face on the painting, over her face. And Lily Light is in the closet. And I was expecting some sort of fist fight here, but Lily just came to warn her, saying, "You should be afraid of me. I have the power to ruin your life, and very soon I'm going to use it."
Once again, and I know we've talked about this a few times, it always amazes me how easily people go into each other's homes and, do stuff.
Planting drugs.
Yeah.
Looking for earrings. If Lily ends up at the wedding and Gina ends up disrupting the wedding, could Lily then disrupt Gina during that same wedding?
With the truth?
Could it be a double disruption? Alice does not want to attend the Capwell wedding because, despite everyone's compliments, she doesn't feel that she looks very good in her dress and makeup, and thinks that everyone will just point to her and say, "There's the girl from the hospital who used to be crazy." Lionel, Jane, and Nick all try to convince her that won't happen. Eventually, Nick talks her into letting him photograph her again in her dress and makeup. And once again, Paul arrives to disapprove of the whole thing. He actually admonishes Jane now for going along with this. He tells Alice that he's worried that she likes Nick more than him. And when he leaves, Jane is kind of smirking, and Alice says, "That was nice because he was talking to me like a person." So I think Alice kind of likes the fact that Paul's jealous of Nick.
Yeah.
Cece thanks Brick for putting aside their differences for Sophia. Brick says he's not putting anything aside. Mason arrives with Ted, and Brick is angry that everyone in the family is celebrating. He punches Cece in the mouth. The wedding rehearsal continues, with Cece and Sophia recalling the vows from their first wedding.
Now, I can see why Brick's upset. Remember, in Santa Barbara time, Amy's death actually only happened a relatively short time ago. And it is kind of poor form, I think, for them to be celebrating Ted and Haley getting out of prison when it hasn't moved things any farther. What's interesting to me, and it's always interesting to me whenever we see Brick and Cece together, is really how much more understanding of Brick Cece is than he is ever of Mason.
Yeah, that's true. Cece's a bit disappointed, I think, that Brick was so angry.
But he also just says, well, it's understandable, which I can't see him ever reacting to Mason that way.
Yeah. The wedding rehearsal is taking place in the gazebo, so either it'll be a very small wedding or there'll be a reception indoors afterwards, perhaps. So Sophia's dream of coming down the staircase maybe doesn't make sense if the wedding's at the gazebo. Or they just thought it'd be nice to have the rehearsal there, but I think it's supposed to be what is it called when they do all the blocking when they rehearse a TV show? Brick tells Lionel he slugged Cece. Lionel tries to get him to make up with Sophia, and Brick gets angry with Lionel and shouts, "I'm nobody's son," and stalks out. So I don't recall how this Brick storyline continues, so this will be new to me. I'm sure I'll, every time something happens, like, oh yeah. Like with this dinosaur thing, it's like, oh yeah, there was something about a dinosaur. Lionel sneaks over to congratulate Sophia, and as luck would have it, Cece walks in just as he's giving her a hug, and I think a bit of a kiss too, if I'm not mistaken. Cece says, "Must be hell for you that I've won and you lost." Lionel says, "I'm not convinced of that yet," which is an interesting thing for him to throw out at this point, since, he's just recently broken up with Augusta. Cece says, "I've got Sophia, you've got dinosaur bones. Please don't come back here again."
Well, Lionel does also have the Lockridge house back, which is no small thing.
If maybe it's because of the wedding, but Cece would be a lot angrier. That he should be a lot angrier than what he is, based on previous shootings and whippings of people that we've witnessed. Mason checks the VCR in Cece's room, as we expected he would. and then finds Gina taking a bubble bath in Cece's bathroom. He tries to get her to tell him what's going to be on the real tape other than that Tarzan movie that's in there now. She tries to tempt him into the tub. And then the next scene, he's not in the tub, but he's pouring her some champagne.
Now, I had a real flashback to, I think it was the first season, if you remember, with the first version of Gina. Yes, sorry, memory freeze. And Mason was waiting for her in the tub.
I totally forgot about that. On his way out, Mason passes Cece and Sophia, and he tells them he wouldn't miss tomorrow's ceremony for anything in the world. So I think he's maybe as intrigued as everyone as to what's going to happen with Gina. While Sophia goes to get changed in, I guess, her room, Cece enters the bathroom to find Gina in the tub. And she says an amusing line that I only got half of, so we'll probably have a reprise next episode, and I'll repeat it for you. I think, he'll obviously be kicking Gina out of the tub, and she'll be having to leave the house, but not sure how he's going to calm down and watch that Tarzan movie, I guess. I don't know. Gina needs time to swap the tape, doesn't she? If she gets kicked out right away. Not sure what her plan is. Lily waits for Mason in a white negligee, and Brick enters instead. She leaps up to call the police, and Brick knocks her down and knocks the phone out of her hand. So we will see how violent Brick's revenge is in the next episode.
I'm kind of expecting someone to burst through the door at the beginning of next episode.
Well, we know Mason left. Don't know how far his apartment is from that, because they're definitely not living in a guest house anymore, I think. Now, we've have a lot of people trying to seduce other people in this episode so far. Lily, Gina. And guess what? Jane has prepared a surprise candlelight dinner for Lionel. And she's all dressed up and did her hair and makeup. And Lionel comes in and immediately identifies what's going on and says, I've always found you very attractive. But he tells her that it wouldn't be a good idea, partly due to their age difference. But they continue with some back and forth dialogue as Jane gets closer and closer to him. That makes me think that she may, at least for a few seconds, be able to talk him into it. So we will see if he kisses her or pushes her away in the next episode. Thoughts on this Lionel and Jane? I guess I'm fine with it. I don't think these age differences in soap operas make as much difference as in the real world.
It's actually more jolting in the modern soap operas when you have the grandparents who basically look the same as the grandkids because they age up the kids so much.
Days of Our Lives last week had a bit of a shocker when 32-year-old Goldman suddenly turned out to be the girlfriend of 75-year-old Clyde Weston, which a lot of people online seem to hate, but I'm fine with it. I like James Reed when he was on Remington Steele. So.
Yeah. But, with Jane especially, she's not really... Remember, she was Roxanne. She's not a complete innocent.
She's sort of the merged version. We'll see how successful this is. She probably just needs a good, successful relationship to, get over her issues. What could go wrong? Credits. We had the full cast credits this week. They were the same as last week. Rosa is still in the credits, and Sophia's name was Sophia Capwell Armonti with no slash between the Capwell and Armonti, just like last week. And that is it for this week of Santa Barbara. And tonight, Falcon Crests, Season 6 premiere. We will see what their earthquake has wrought. And that's it for week 114. We'll be back with week 115 in 2 weeks. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Well, Lily, being in politics means that I have to avoid even a hint of scandal. And nubile teenage evangelist roommates would definitely be frowned upon.